husband, James Granberry Davis. Forgive me if I refer to my notes or just plain read what I prepared. I don't want to forget anything or go off on a tangent, and there is so much to think about regarding my dad's life. It hasn't been easy preparing this little talk. I procrastinated for all kinds of reasons, perhaps partly from not wanting to intellectually confront or wrap my head around the death of such a complicated man who touched so many. Perhaps I was scared these words might pierce the protective gauze of mild shock I've been walking through. However, I found making these words helps to give shape to his life, and there are certainly aspects of this man that I would want folks to remember. And so I'm going to try to trace some themes that seem to define my dad as I knew him, which are organized in no particular hierarchy. First, my father suffered from acute wanderlust. Maybe that need to escape developed while he was confined in a hospital for months as a small boy, and also where he learned to draw. Later, he journeyed alone through the heartland of this country after leaving home at an early age. He worked in a toy factory in Chicago and would duck into the Field Museum to stay warm. Apparently, he attempted to boil a chicken he found while he was half-starved on the side of the road. This would lead to his idea of an ill-fated franchise called, plaintively, Jim's Boiled Chicken and Mustard Pie. Never went anywhere. I've heard stories of bar fights in jail. This may not be surprising to all of you. And his eventual landing in Wichita, where another journey began, as he found academia and, importantly, my mom. Ultimately, my father became a citizen of the world. My parents' countless adventures all over the planet, from Fiji to Spain, from Egypt to Nova Scotia, were fodder for his art. His fascination with other cultures and the shared human experience was palpable. My dad said often, you can judge a man's freedom by knowing the exact dimensions of his cell. My dad fought hard against confinement, which is why his ongoing issues with his foot and being locked out of Canada were particularly saddening in his later years. This coincided with my dad finally putting down his brushes, and so another door closed. In his last days, all Dad ever wanted to do was get the hell out of the house. We'd take him to the Oracle Inn, or sometimes I'd just drive around and we'd be listening to old country music. Even in his very last days, Dad tried to rally in the hopes that if he got better, he might again fly away. I guess, in a way, he finally did. Another aspect of Dad was his tremendous work ethic and dedication to his craft. He'd get back from a long day of teaching and slip away to the studio to continue an epic siege on whatever painting he was working on. I had the opportunity to work closely with him on the weekends in the studio, long days of priming canvases or cleaning zinc plates. I'll always remember and love the smell of the oil paint and hearing the quiet music and the whispers of his brushes on canvas. The stacks and stacks of powerful drawings, the boxes full of collections of notes, rack after rack of not just paintings but amazing paintings, are testament to a man on fire. Mom and I sometimes mused that he painted until the wheels fell off. Dad was a pursuer of deeper truths. The wandering I mentioned afforded him glimpses of a web that reality is built upon, and was strengthened by his introduction to philosophy, poetry, prose, art, history, and music at the university. All of these being means to think about the fundamental dilemmas of our short lives. His interest in deeper truths informed his teaching. There was a sincerity and authenticity to his approach that touched generations of students. His adherence to truth sometimes manifested itself in rage and railing against hypocrisy, especially when Jim had had a few cocktails. He could find weakness in people and sometimes couldn't help but forcefully point them out, always feeling a little guilty the next morning. But the most enduring result of his commitment to truth are found in the works of art I alluded to earlier. The mastery we see, the emotional resonance we feel come from his complete authenticity and ability to distill. The truthfulness, finally, of the work is a rarity and is why his work will endure in its significance and likely magnify in import. Coupled with his need for truthfulness, was Dad's compassion and empathy, which again can be seen in his art. He was a painter of the everyday man and woman, noticing tiny gestures that quietly suggested the crushing of dreams or the upwelling of desire. Dad was always really looking at our human world even if at times he seemed to stand outside it. Dad also had a tremendous respect for the natural world. His love of nature made him grouchy about even trimming trees. His work is filled with animals who witness human folly. His museum case paintings highlight notions of isolation and a shared struggle against death. Certainly his Hunter series blurred the lines between humanity and the animal world. I remember long, quiet walks in the desert with him, father and son becoming part of the landscape. Finally, Dad loved Mom and I. Many of you will recall a show my dad had a few years back here that featured 50 years of paintings of my mom. He loved her deeply, if imperfectly. We have been sifting through hundreds of photographs, and it's interesting that two people sometimes are lucky enough to travel through so much time and change together. In the end, my mom had become the entire world to him. He'd shuffle into the kitchen to make sure she was still there. He was lucky to have my mom, and he knew it. And as I mentioned, Dad loved me. It was always palpable, if a little clumsy. He taught me how to play cards, and despite having absolutely no interest in or knowledge of football, would throw the ball around with me. On my 11th summer, he was excited to have me read Don Quixote, which I somehow finished having no idea what I'd read. He took me to the opera and on epic trips. He taught me the less glamorous chores of art making. In high school, the only fights we ever really had were about how he didn't understand why I didn't want to hang around on the ranch, even though all my friends lived in Tucson. He supported my becoming an artist, and how nice it is to remember our show's continuing narratives and lineage. Hopefully a testament to the continuing of a creative exploration started by him. I am lucky to have had so much time together with him over the years, and I've learned so much and still have so much to consider. He said some mysterious things in that quiet voice. In the last years, he always would get on the phone and ask when I was coming down. 2 weeks, Dad. 2 weeks. He loved me and his grandchildren to the core. To close, I'm wearing his ring. It is heavy and beautiful and imperfect. You have heard the expression, those are some big boots to fill. I wear this ring with humility. But mostly, I hope this ring will remind me of the days when my dad carried the fire. I hope it will remind me to carry the fire myself and to pass it down to my beautiful son and daughters. Thank you.